What is going on with y'all, man? It is Black Balloon, and I'm coming back with another video, so y'all already know what's going on. Alright, y'all. Now you're probably wondering why this scribble scrabble type of alien picture is on the screen, but by the title of this video, you already know where we're about to go. What rabbit hole we are going down once again. I came across this clip from a short on YouTube, and it was just random, but I had never seen this before, right? So supposedly it is dubbed the Ariel school phenomenon, where about 62 to 64 kids witnessed UFO and aliens back in Zimbabwe in 1994. I thought it was very interesting because I've never seen this clip. I've never actually heard of this with all the UFO research I've done before, or, UAP as they like to call it now, unidentified aerial phenomenon, or, how they like to switch it up. But I thought this stuff was very interesting because it comes from, at the time, very young kids. And, they're so young, they don't really hold the capacity to lie about something like this, right? It almost goes against a lot of what people believe UFOs and aliens to be, as in they had some kind of direct contact with these supposed beings, right? Some of y'all may have seen this stuff before, but I happened to find one of the original clips. I saw people saying that the original videos were scrubbed off the internet and someone bought all of them up and attached copyrights to them, which is very true because I had to cut out part of the clip that I'm going to use because of copyrights. So one part I may have to put a picture over it. But that part is true. Whoever bought all of the footage, they made sure to copyright everything. So we're going to get around that. We're going to get to the clip in a second. But I thought this would be a very good video for us to visit on. And it may give a little bit more insight to what possibly is to come in the near future as far as Project Bluebeam. If these beings could actually be real, were they some type of fallen angel entity that manifested into a form to us that just looks like aliens? We always dub, the big eyes, the dark black circles around the eyes, big pupils, small pupils, or whatever. We always say those are aliens because, in this dimension, that's all we see them as, or Hollywood has taught us to see those as aliens, but nothing else, just beings from another planet or another realm or another dimension, but these could also be beings that manifest into that form so they can be seen by us or whoever they choose to allow to see them. If they manifest into a human and they're standing right next to us, then we won't, it won't be anything. It wouldn't be a shock. It wouldn't be a surprise. And the ones that these kids claim to have seen left them a very special message in their eyes, right? About humanity, about this earth, about where the world would be going. And it's also going to take us into some technology that has now been, I guess, released or being worked on for the past 10 to 20 plus years that y'all are going to find very interesting. And it's also going to match what the kids were talking about when they saw these supposed aliens. So with that being said, y'all, we will jump into the clip, and then I have two articles that I want to read to y'all that's going to be very interesting. So with that being said, check this out.
In September 1994, over 60 children from this school in the suburbs of Harare, Zimbabwe, witnessed several objects landing and two beings coming out. Just over 2 months later, John and Dominique came to the scene to work with the children, their parents, and the teachers still suffering from shock. John, who essentially specialized in child psychiatry, devoted a great deal of time to interviewing the children.
Something scared you, is that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the air? What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute. It was scary myself.
It was scary because you saw something yourself?
Yes. I saw a little object hovering. It was quite big actually, and then there was little ones all around it. We saw something silver, and then we quickly ran to the logs, and we saw a silver thing, and we saw a man standing next to it.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
I felt scared.
It felt scared? What was scary about it?
Well, I felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
Did you see the eyes? What did they look like?
They were going like that.
Where was the pointy part? Was the pointy part in here, or was the pointy part out there? Up there. And what was the feeling when you looked at the eyes?
It was scary.
And what scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes looked evil.
Evil. And what was evil about them? Say what you mean by evil.
It looked evil because it was just staring at me.
With what? Staring at you as if what? As if to do what?
As if it wanted to come and take us.
As if it wanted to come and take you. That was the feeling you got? That it wanted you to go with it? Did you feel like you wanted to go with it? No. Did you feel, what was the effect on you when you felt it wanted to have you go with it?
I just walked away and I started crying.
They came running up here in such a panic. And I mean, even if we had staged it, they could not have run all together like that. Even if we practiced it, I don't know how many times. But they came up here like a living snake. And they just came, we were in a staff meeting and we just heard them screaming, ah, and then they were here, you know, and a child can't make that up.
I was very skeptical in the beginning as well. I believed that they'd seen something, but I wasn't prepared to accept that it was anything supernatural or anything like that. But I think the consistency of what's been going on indicates that it was more than I was prepared to admit in the beginning.
So both of them were running. One was running in the trees, and the other one was running across the ship, because there were also trees here.
The eyes were like more pointed as they came in toward the center of the head, is that?
No, more circular. And this was all black in here.
All black. Now you've made pupils. Did they actually have pupils or black?
White.
What?
The pupils were white like that.
You saw white in the center?
Yes, like that.
Was he near the silver object, or was he far from?
No, on top.
On top of the silver object. Okay. And did you look at him?
Yes.
Did he look at you?
Yes, then he gave me the creeps, then I stopped looking
Gave you
at
the
him.
creeps. Actually, in your drawing, you showed him standing up, didn't you?
Yes, I had to draw him standing up because I couldn't draw him sitting. What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. Maybe they're telling us the world's going to end.
Why do you think they might want us to be scared?
Because because we don't look after the planet the area properly.
And is this an idea that you have had before, that we don't look after the planet properly in the air, or did this idea come to you when you had this experience?
When I had this experience.
And how did that idea come to you from this experience? This is a little hard, but try to be with me here, okay? How did this idea come to you when you had this experience?
I just felt all horrible inside.
You felt horrible. At what point did you feel that? When you saw the craft, or when you got home at night? Or
When I got home.
you had that horrible feeling when you got home?
Yes.
And say more about that horrible feeling, Lisa. What was it like?
It was like in the world, all the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
Mm-hmm. And those thoughts came to you. Had you had those thoughts before this experience?
No.
No. And how did those thoughts come to you? Did they come to you from the craft or from
the man?
The man. And did the man say those things to you? How did he get that across to you?
Well, he never said anything. It's just that the face is the eyes.
What was the sense you got from those eyes?
He was interested.
Now, I've listened to that clip probably 10 times already, right? Very interesting as I'm watching it each time, right? Just like trying to picture it, trying to imagine it as some, very young eyes would see it. The story attracted a lot of attention back in the 90s. Now, the guy, Dr. John E. Mack, who was talking to the kids, he specializes in child psychology and also, alien abduction. He was a graduate of Harvard, a Pulitzer Prize winner, and also it gets a little bit deeper and darker on his side as well, because unfortunately I have an article to read about what happened to him 10 years later. But right before we get into that, just to kind of sum it all up for people who may be new to this story. Oh yeah, and I also have a little clip I want y'all to hear from a Joe Rogan podcast about 4 or 5 years ago where they talked about this incident. Just gives us a little bit more information on the people who, were looking into this stuff and some of the doubts and how, this converted people to actually believe that this was real, that these kids actually saw silver flying disc and 2 alien beings who communicated with them telepathically. We're also going to get into that as well, as far as some new technology in our day and age that relates. So it says in September 1994, a strange story emerged from the tiny community of Rua in Zimbabwe. There, 62 children at the prestigious Ariel school reported seeing flying silver discs land in a nearby field. According to the children, bizarre creatures emerged from the disc and spoke to them in what came to be known as the Ariel phenomenon. The creatures were allegedly human-like, but had waxy skin and large, penetrating eyes. What's more, the children reported that the creatures communicated through thoughts, not spoken words, urging them telepathically to protect Earth's environment. A number of adults soon investigated the children's claims, including UFO expert Cynthia Hine, Harvard professor of psychiatry John E. Mack, and the BBC. But while some of the Ariel phenomenon as compelling proof of extraterrestrial life, others see it as a prime example of mass hysteria. So it says it happened on September 16, 1994 in Zimbabwe, a community so small that it was sometimes described as more of a crossroad than a town. There had been a lot of alleged UFO sightings in the previous days, but nothing would match what dozens of school children claimed to see during an otherwise normal school day. Now, I thought something interesting was that it says there had been a lot of alleged UFO sightings in the previous days. So I'm going to assume in that small community, they were already seeing UFOs in the skies. So it says around 10 a.m., the children went outside for a mid-morning break. But as they were playing near the school building, something in the distance caught their attention. As the children later told adults, they saw silvery, round disc. What I thought was interesting about the story, obviously, we can go in about what they were actually seeing. So, y'all remember we talked about UFOs, and we talked about back in the 40s, with the Third Reich and the Nazis. Remember, we can't talk about UFOs unless we include them. Remember, they had orbs that can appear and disappear, just like in the blink of an eye. They could cross dimensions, all kind of stuff. In the blink of an eye. Reappear, disappear, poof, gone, right? Throughout all of that studying and researching, I also became aware that we have technology, or I'm not going to say we, technology exists, or these UFOs or whatever you want to call them exist to where they're not actually physical. Sometimes when we see these orbs, when we see what we think are silver disc, or when people see these objects, they're not physical. So if they were to hover or land in front of you, you couldn't actually touch it. You can see it, but you can't touch it. I guess in a sense, you could call that interdimensional, or, you could call it an orb or some kind of digital, print that just happens to be able to fly. I don't know how you want to term it, word it. I don't know. So we're aware that this technology, I don't know if it's from us. I don't know if it's from them, whoever them is, fallen angels, it's not physical. These UFOs, they are not physical, okay? So not once in this story does it say the kids touched the UFOs. None of that. So there's a very good chance that those UFOs were not physical. They were not something that could be touched. They were just in the field somewhere. But they did say that those beings communicated with them through their minds, telepathically. So they beamed a message to their minds, and they heard it, and they knew it came from those entities. And it makes me think about this article I found from 2019 that says talking lasers. This article is titled "Talking Lasers That Beam Messages into Your Head Could Be Here in 5 Years," the Pentagon says. This was back in 2019. There's already proof that this stuff is real, that it exists. It just made me think about this because I thought about Project Bluebeam. I thought about a bunch of stuff. And just the word beam just made me think about the fact that I had came across something where there was technology available that they can literally shoot thoughts into your head. That's like the short version of it, right? So it says, as a part of a military initiative called the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate, the project aims to create laser weapons that can transmit clear snippets of human speech across long distances. To accomplish this task, the weapon uses a principle called the laser-induced plasma effect, which involves firing an incredibly powerful laser to create a ball of plasma, then shooting a second laser to oscillate the plasma, creating sound waves. With enough laser bursts fired at the right frequencies, the plasma vibrations can actually mimic human speech. Says it sounds like science fiction, but the military has a weapon. They're calling this a weapon that may be available in as few as 5 years. Now, this was 6 years ago. They're basically telling you they have technology that can send thoughts into your head. They're terming it as a weapon. So, in a sense, they're weaponizing this. And we're not fighting wars every single day. We're not in the battlefield every single day. So who and what do you think they're actually using this technology on? A lot of this will be used for Project Bluebeam. A lot of this will be used to send thoughts into your head that make you think this alien invasion is real, or that this false Christ or this antichrist that's going to come upon this world. A lot of false messages may show up in your mind to make you think this is real when it's not. And it made me think about these aliens that, telepathically spoke to these children. This is what came to my mind. Obviously, there's no proof that aliens or whatever, can come through this dimension and speak to us through our minds. I'm just saying there's no physical or there's no proof unless it happened to you, it happened to me. Do I not believe what those children are saying? No, I'm not saying that. I fully believe what they are saying. Whatever entity, whatever being they saw and spoke to, and that being basically spoke through them, I believe it. Now, was it a so-called alien? Was it fallen angels manifesting? Is it some kind of being we don't know about manifesting? Like I said earlier, so we're able to see them in this dimension because obviously, whatever manifests here into some kind of waxy looking figure with big eyes, it's not a human. So they have to manifest into something physical that we can see. But the message was very light. It wasn't scary. They knew they were talking and sending a message to kids. That's why the kids said something about, the environment, the air. They didn't want the adults to see them. They made themselves be known to the children, whoever that they is. This topic it's endless. We could sit here and talk about the possibilities all day and night. But I'm trying to get my thoughts together and put across to y'all in a way that it makes sense from how I'm seeing it, which is why I wanted to read that we also have the technology to do exactly what those so-called aliens did to those kids, which is speak telepathically. And I'm pretty sure this tech is a lot more developed than just some lasers. Like they don't have to point a laser gun at you and do it by now. You know what I'm saying? We just never know. So I'm going to go ahead and show y'all the clip where they talk about this on the Joe Rogan podcast. Probably going to have to put a picture over it because I'm pretty sure everything he does is copyrighted. Y'all go ahead, check this out. Then we'll come back and read the article about the doctor from Harvard, the Pulitzer Prize winner that actually interviewed those kids. And we'll wrap this video up. Check this out.
I was doing my first documentary back in 1997 when I was just naive enough to think I can get an interview with Steven Spielberg. We had a mutual friend involved, this woman, Janet. And she gets back to me and she's like, yeah, so Spielberg's definitely not going to meet with you, but he knows you're working on this UFO documentary. He thinks you should look into this landing case that happened in Africa at the school. And I said to myself at the time, and remind you guys that I was making a film on UFOs. And I dismissed it so quickly because I thought, there's no way that a mass landing with the sheer volume of eyewitness testimony at a school in broad daylight could happen and the whole world not know about it. So I just walked away from that story for about 10 years. 10 years later, I'm doing an event at the National Press Club with Leslie Kean, who was part of the article in the New York Times that came out in 2017. And she introduced me to this guy, Randall Nickerson. And she's like, oh, he's working on this landing case in Africa. Long story short, he's working on a film now. I think it's coming out next year, specifically on just that case. Dan Farah is producing it. And he said, I'm working on the case, and if you want to do something with me on it, a small piece, I could. So I got back into it. I licensed some of the footage that Dr. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist that came and interviewed the school children on camera within a week of it happening. He unfortunately looked the wrong way in London, got run down by a car and died. So I contacted the Institute with the help of Randall Nickerson. I licensed the archival footage. We tracked down the witnesses today. We flew them in from all different corners of the world, brought them together. A lot of them were standing right next to each other. They came face to face, and one of the things I've realized was that there were roughly 100 kids in the playground, broad daylight, Ariel School, Ruwa, Zimbabwe, 1994, and they got within some of them within arm's length of these beings, and brought these witnesses together for the first time in 20 years. And a lot of them hadn't even told their significant others, just because they said they were tired of having to defend this. And I myself didn't believe it when I first heard about it back in 1997. And that segment of the film is the most, in my opinion, is the most powerful segment, because
it's very compelling.
You've got all these children saying what they saw on camera after it happened, and then you see them 20 years later, and then we go to Africa and we meet with the headmistress, or she was a teacher at the time. We meet with other witnesses. We go to the landing site. We talk to people at the school. That case is absolutely, and it was witnessed by lots of other people in and around the area for several days before it chose a school to let.
If y'all were really listening in that clip on the Joe Rogan show, his guests kind of brushed past the point of Dr. Johnny Mack, the guy who was interviewing the kids from Zimbabwe that saw the aliens. Remember in the first clip, he was the one asking them the questions, asking them in ways that kids would know how to answer. He died. He was hit by a drunk driver exactly 10 years after 1994. In 2004, he died. 10 years later, y'all. It says Johnny Mack, a Pulitzer Prize winner and Harvard psychiatrist who studied people who said they had encounters with alien beings, died in London on Monday. He was 74 and lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Dr. Mack was struck by a driver suspected of being drunk and evidently died on impact. Dr. Mack was in Britain to speak at a conference on T.E. Lawrence, the British officer known as Lawrence of Arabia. He was drawn to psychoanalytic analysis of the misunderstood or vulnerable, including children contemplating unaliving themselves, teenagers troubled by the threat of nuclear war, and finally, people plagued by what they believe to be recurrent alien encounters. So I'm not going to spend too much time here because I think you guys get the idea of what happened to him. Plenty of drunk drivers or drunks are used as patsies, and just so coincidentally, 10 years later, he happened to be hit by a drunk driver. And I don't believe in coincidences. I even saw somewhere that same day, there were multiple other deaths of people hit by cars in that same town. But like I said, I don't believe in coincidences, and I never have. But, someone who was, well-versed, well-studied in this stuff, maybe had access to things that, we didn't know about, or was getting close to research in areas that they didn't want known to the public yet. Who knows? Who knows why things like this happen in this world to people who decide to chase this kind of knowledge or, get close to a truth that they didn't want to quite reveal yet. But, just so happens he gets hit by a drunk driver and he dies on impact. 2004. Not the way I would have loved to end this video, but I myself was very surprised to hear that he was killed. I just didn't expect it. It's not the most shocking news when we do the research that we do, but I was very surprised to hear it. So y'all, I think I'll end this part right here. Maybe we could get a part 2 going to this video. There was actually like a couple of other clips that I could have put in this video as well, but didn't want to make it too long, and also wanted to get y'all reactions, or if y'all would even like to see a part 2, definitely let me know what y'all think in the comments. So with that being said, y'all, it's a Black Balloon, and I'm gonna see y'all soon. I'm out.